Hello, I'm Richard Huber and this is SatTV Week. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Thomas van den Driessche of Newtec. Thomas, you're now the CEO of Newtec. You've obviously got a newish perspective of the industry. Where do you see it going?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud to be the CEO of Newtec. It's a wonderful company. We were kind of lucky to understand where we were going when we changed the company back in 2011, 2012. I guess we picked the right strategy. So I do not need to go out and move and change everything in a direction where it's going. So when you have a working strategy, you can effectively pick an internal CEO. So that's the good part of that transition. The strategy we've chosen and the direction the market is going is clearly HTS in the first place. We see, while maybe 10 years ago there were one of two HTS plays, we now see maybe 26 operators with HTS plans, either hosted payloads or whole satellites. And Newtec, as an independent technology provider, has a big role in that. So when you have to pick ground segment for high throughput satellites, Newtec is very well fit for that as an independent type of technology provider. So a large part of the strategy is based on that. It's based on understanding where the market is going, trying to fulfill the best role we can in terms of scalability, density, bringing return on investment to these operators and to service providers in general. We've always been there for the service providers to make a profitable business.
Now you mentioned HTS, but it's not the only key topic at the moment, cellular backhaul, and you're very well positioned in cellular backhaul.
Yeah, so in our play in HTS, to come back to that, is a multi-service environment. While in the past people made decisions to launch a satellite for a single purpose, like consumer, we see a multitude of platforms being launched for multiple services. And a large driver, one of those services and a large driver in terms of bandwidth requirements is cellular backhaul. The need to have LTE at high speeds, or to have many 2G, 3G and LTE sites combined. It's a big driver for bandwidth consumption. You go back to consumer behavior, you see that the data consumption is a big driver for telecommunication market in general, so it's kind of logical that we're there. So today, even without the HTS components, we're doing a lot of cellular backhaul. We have built specific technology in our dynamic SCPC solutions, MXDMA, which fits really well with the requirements for cell backhaul. So today we're rolling out 2G, 3G and 4G networks based on Newtec Dialog with MXDMA, specific components that work very efficiently for cellular backhaul. We're doing that here in Asia. We have a large play in Indonesia, for instance, currently with Universal Service Obligation. And we're doing it all over Asia and Pacific, but also indeed in Africa and in South America, of course.
You mentioned Africa, which is interesting. Last 2 or 3 years, all I've heard is Africa, Africa, Africa. Seems to have gone a bit quiet and we're refocusing on Asia again. What sort of trends do you perceive happening?
Well, I mean, in terms of cell backhaul, for instance, Africa is a big market. I wouldn't say that the LTE deployment is the main driver. There is still 3G and 2G. In South America, we see a lot of higher speeds and also more use of KU band and KA band than, well, in the past it wouldn't be imaginable, but again, the technology that we've put on the table today is one that allows very high availability in KU band and KA band, which is different from what the telecommunication industry has perceived to be, well, the requirement was always leaning towards C-band. So now with this new technology on board, we can really effectively use KU and KA. So wherever there's a lot of capacity available, which is also South America and Africa, there's a lot of new cell backhaul projects coming up. I wouldn't say that Africa is the most active market. I think you're right in that The bigger requirements are coming out of Southeast Asia and South America, to be honest.
Now, the big thing at the moment is trying to save the customers money. How do you do that? How do you get it so that you can save them the money so they can reinvest?
Well, multiple ways. First of all, the customer is for us, the customer is either the service provider, that's our customer, or the end customer, of course, the MNO, the telco environment, or any other application, maritime, in-flight connectivity, which is obviously something we do today. But how do we save them money? Well, first of all, we enable the use of lower cost capacity, right? We enable the use of HTS capacity. We scale, we have density in our systems, and we have efficiency in our systems to really enable the use of that type of capacity. I talked about using KU and KA in ways that wasn't imaginable before as well. So we enable this. Therefore, the customer has access to lower cost capacity and can use it at a higher spectral efficiency than before. So the megahertz price is lower and the megabits throughput is higher. So the actual price per megabit can be up to 10 times less, to be honest. Secondly, we provide modems at lower cost for cell backhaul, for sure. The intelligence is more typically now in the hub systems than in the modems. So the modems that are used today for cellular backhaul are actually less expensive than a couple of years ago, a lot less expensive, a fraction of the price. And secondly, of course, a modem that we design today is 10 times more powerful, can handle 10 times the speeds for the same cost as it was 5 years ago. So there's many aspects, both CapEx, but mainly on the operational cost of networks that lower the cost for the customers.
But also you're providing a service, aren't you? You've been working in the Pacific Islands with Pacific, bridging the digital divide. How's that working here?
Well, I think our relationship with Pacific is excellent. We do not provide a service in terms of a bandwidth service, of course. We're a pure technology company. But I think we have enough of the cost saving, enough of the performance to enable such interesting new applications like supplying islands with capacity that they haven't done before, bridging some of the digital divide in that way, like it wasn't economically viable before. And now we have those capabilities. We have learned from trial and errors in the past. Yesterday at a conference I said, I don't think the industry has mastered the closing of the digital divide yet, but we've learned. For instance, we've started building Wi-Fi hotspots, which are low cost in capex and provide whole villages with internet connectivity, so that you have an economic now where for $1 or $2, $3 you actually can deliver services to consumers, which was not possible in the past. Think about, I think the lowest cost for a consumer in satellite maybe $30 or $50 for real broadband connectivity. We have seen universal service obligations in some countries that didn't work, and we've seen them now working in some other countries. So we've learned all of that to close. And some companies like Pacific have found a model to serve the unconnected, and that is apparently economically viable, and we can enable that. So I think they're all great initiatives. I saw some press releases about using our technology in this region, which are great, saving lives and bringing more connectivity to the region.
So, as you are the CEO, where are you going to drive Newtec next? What's the future looking like?
Well, as I mentioned, there are a couple of drivers that are very obviously. I think everything starts with consumer behavior. We are part of the telecommunication industry, both the TV broadcast aspect and the media aspect, as well as the data and voice connectivity. So we are clearly driven by what drives the people, and what drives the people is consumption of more data, more content, anywhere at any time. So we're moving the company clearly in a direction to follow those, and they're not trends. I mean, they're parts of we're in the long haul of the telecommunication market, and we're fulfilling this role to serve the places that are unconnected clearly, but also to be in the mobility market, for instance, where satellite obviously has a role that will be there for a long time, as there are not many alternatives. So we've, I think it's public information that we've signed a contract with Panasonic to serve in-flight connectivity all around the world. We're also heading in towards a very strong position in the maritime market, which we've only recently really start pushing. And we have the right technology today to serve very high speeds on boats and to do great beam switching capabilities and Doppler compensation technology for this specific market. It's getting a lot of traction there. So being in the places that make most sense is exactly what we're doing. If you go back before 2011, Newtec was strong in the broadcast industry, in high-speed trunks, and in some consumer broadband. Today we have a platform that's taking a lot of market share in our industry. And I think we're becoming a market share player to that extent. So that's the main thing that has changed. We're not just picking some niches that we want to be good in. Today, HTS doesn't allow you to pick and choose all that much. You have to just be good at the platform and be good in the markets. And that has transformed Newtec also into a true market player.
Thomas, thank you very much.
Thank you.